Let's start things off with BYU football. The Cougs got some recruits added to the class of 2026. It was a busy official visit weekend with a few commits. Alatini was one from California. He was out on an official visit. Then some uncommitted prospects, and then a few added to the mix as well. Antonio Johnson, a cornerback out of Fort Worth, Texas. He commits to BYU. Underrated guy, under the radar type of prospect. And look, BYU has had a lot of success with these type of players in the past. Antonio Johnson added to the group for BYU, but you love the size, 6'3.5", 180. That alone is something you can work with and develop. And we know that Gennaro Guilford has had a lot of success with under-the-radar prospects that become pretty good. So I'm very intrigued to see what Antonio Johnson can become at BYU. But he took an official visit this past weekend. He's officially a BYU Cougar. And then the BYU Cougs also added Parker Ord, a tight end, 3-star out of Frisco, Texas. If the last name sounds familiar, you're right. Andrew Ord, that's his uncle. Remember, Andrew Ord played with BYU late 90s, early 2000s. He was a teammate of Kalani Sitake's. Andrew Ord was from California. Parker Ord, his nephew, is a 6'4", 210-pound tight end from Frisco, Texas. And what's interesting now in this class, BYU has 3 tight end commits. Brock Harris, of course, the 4-star out of Pine View High School, one of the top tight ends in the country. Ty Getch from Colorado, he's going to be going on a mission after this upcoming fall. So he'll have a year, and then, not this upcoming fall. He'll play at BYU his high school senior year this fall. Then he'll go to BYU. Then he'll go on a mission, and then he'll finish his BYU career after the mission. Brock Harris will go on a mission and then be back after his mission concludes. And then Parker Ord added to the mix as well. So BYU's got 3 tight ends in the class of 2026. And it's a smart move because it's a position that needed to be boosted a little bit. You know, you've got some interesting options, I think, in the tight end unit for 2025. Some veteran guys like Carson Ryan, who's got 1 year. And Carson told me back in the spring that they were looking maybe into a second year potentially for him of eligibility due to some injuries he had at UCLA. But most likely this is going to be his last year of college football. So then after Carson Ryan, you've got Kean Need, who comes in from New Mexico. You got Ethan Wood from New Mexico State, some young guys like Noah Moiaki, Tucker Kelleher. But really it's kind of, there's not a set kind of timetable of what that tight end position is going to look like for the future. So you really needed to boost that up. And this is kind of the first big recruiting cycle where Kevin Gilbride has been actively recruiting these prospects for an extended period of time. And pretty good so far. That message is clear, and there's some unique ties to BYU. Ty Getch, knew Andrew George was in his ward, former BYU tight end out in Colorado, Inglewood. The close connections there, and Andrew George helped get coaches onto Ty Getch's radar. And I saw him in person at the Under Armour Next camp. He was a little bit banged up, kind of soreness in his hip, so he didn't go full speed, but a big-bodied athlete, 6'7", 225 is Ty Getch. And Ord joins that pretty talented tight end unit. Of course, Brock Harris, he was an all-world prospect, 5-star rating for an extended period of time. Then now he's a 4-star in the composite. But heralded player, one of the highest-rated prospects BYU's landed a commitment from. So this is a really good class so far for BYU. It has dropped a little bit because the month of June is where a lot of schools build up their recruiting class. A lot of programs these days want to have their recruiting class done, committed by around July 4th. So BYU's dropped to now 50th in the 24/7 Sports team recruiting rankings for the class of 2026, 11 commits. However, if they add, say, Ryder Lyons, who's going to be taking an official visit this upcoming week, and all of the guys that they've got coming in, like a Jax Tanner, an offensive lineman from Idaho who just had an official visit to Tennessee, Oregon before that, that's going to climb quickly if you can land those guys. So BYU's in a good place, I think, with this recruiting class. And I'll be honest, I think this 2026 class on paper, and just looking at the positions, the talent, the high-end prospects that BYU's adding, it's one of the best classes, I think, maybe the best class thus far that Kalani has put together since he's been the head coach. That dates back now to 2016. I think this is a really impressive class. And I think, honestly, the recruiting that BYU has been doing in the Big 12 era, really since 2021 when they got the invite, I think it's quietly improved. I think a lot of, people that maybe don't follow recruiting as closely and maybe the history of BYU football and kind of compare the talent, the athletes that they're getting now compared to in the past, it's night and day different. They're in the mix now for some big-time prospects. It's no longer projection-based. Yes, you're getting the Antonio Johnsons who are going to be a little bit more projection and develop, but you also are getting some guys that when they're a freshman, they're going to be expected to contribute right away. BYU in the past, earlier in Kalani's tenure, it was too much. Let's go find an amazing athlete, undersized guy, and then develop him into something special. Well, they're getting good athletes with these classes now, and they got the measurables and the size to step right in and compete in a power conference, and I think that's pretty exciting for BYU. Also, in football recruiting news, 2027 recruits kind of come into focus as well as coaching staffs can officially contact and, officially start to launch the communication with these 2027 recruits. So BYU put out some edits, letting the class of 2027 prospects know they're on the clock. It's time for them to make their decisions coming up here soon. And the same goes for basketball, too. BYU basketball was heavily involved with 2027 recruits as that became official contact for the 2027 recruits, came into focus for basketball as well. And BYU basketball offered some heralded prospects for the class of 2027, none bigger than Baba Oladotun, 6'9" forward from Silver Spring, Maryland, number 1 recruit in the 2027 recruiting class. And look, I think in the past you would have looked at that and said, well, that's nice that BYU's trying. Well, best of luck to you. Well, now, and you'll hear coming up shortly here on this show, BYU's got a number 1 recruit in the building. They got a guy that's the best in the nation, and they're giving another proof of concept to these prospects in the future. It'll be very interesting to see how successful A.J. DeBonsa can be at BYU, because if he is incredible this year, you have to think that that's going to maybe resonate with a Baba Oladotun and go, why not go there? They've got everything that you'd want for NBA preparation. Why not go there? Similar body build to AJ DeBonsa is Baba Oladotun, 6'9". He's got some comparisons to like a Kevin Durant type, just like AJ. It's very interesting. So we'll have to keep tabs on him. And then also BYU offered a 7-foot, 5-star center, Obinna Akeze Jr., Obinna Akeze Jr., 7-foot, 5-star center. BYU offered him. They also made contact and extended offers to a lot of prospects that were 4- and 5-star, top 30 prospects. So BYU getting in the mix. And look, again, BYU basketball is not foreign to this. Before Kevin Young, Mark Pope was doing this too. It just, the phone calls were not picking up as quickly with Mark Pope and BYU back then, or Dave Rose or Steve Cleveland back in the day. The message wasn't resonating. But now for Kevin Young, he's got the NBA resume, which we've known from the moment that he arrived on campus. But then he's also built up Yegor Demin. He's going to be a lottery pick. Well, at least potentially a lottery pick. Could slip outside, maybe go to the Thunder at 15. But he's going to probably be a top 15 pick. And then you've got proof of concept on the court, Sweet 16, something that BYU basketball has not done in 14 years. He did that in year 1 as a 6th seed, mind you, which was a tough road. They had to play VCU, had to play Wisconsin. Then they ran into a buzzsaw with Alabama. But they're stacking up, which is probably fitting for Kevin Young because he likes to stack days. They're stacking up all of these proof of concepts to show recruits, like, why would you not come here now? Why would you not come to this place where you're going to have NBA prep, you're going to have on court, you're going to be in the Big 12, going to compete against highly resourced programs that are getting 5-star talents, your future NBA competitors and peers, you're going to be competing against them night in, night out in the Big 12. What's holding you back? So I think it's significant that, BYU, the moment that 2027 contact can begin, Kevin Young is right there, and he's offering these guys. And last week, too, we saw a lot of these players in action. The MBPA Top 100 camp was taking place. I was tuning into some of those games to kind of watch the prospects because these are now, events, these live periods or these events are huge for BYU recruiting. They help shape, maybe give a proof of concept to the BYU coaches of what these guys could potentially be and gives them their intel to maybe looking to see if these guys would be fits at BYU. I was kind of watching more so Dean Ruckert, Timpview High prospect, who's a 2026 recruit. He's going to be a player to continue to watch between now and November when signing day takes place for the 2026 basketball class. But it's pretty fun to see BYU basketball get in the mix for these heralded prospects. And, 2026, 2027 should be very interesting to see how Kevin Young pieces together these prospects going forward. Can he continue to build the momentum that he had with the 2025 class, which featured Xavier Stat and of course, AJ DeBonsa, as we